Alright guys, thanks for tuning into this video today. As you can probably tell by the title of the video, the goal of today is to get this put in there. Not going to run today, but we will get the engine in and that'll be one step closer to getting it running. One big step closer to getting it running. So I've done a few things off camera just because they're very difficult to film. I pulled the dashboard out. That's just for the gauge pod and wiring and stuff like that. So you can see I pulled through a few wires. That's for the gauge pod, or the gauges I mean. There's a gauge I'm still waiting on, so that one needs to go in there, so the dash isn't going back in quite yet. I also need to mold my gauge pod into the dashboard, which I'll show you in a second. I routed those through this boot that goes into the firewall. There's this big hole, so I just cut a hole in the boot to put the wires through. There's a lot of wires. Lots of wires. So, also got the downpipe loosely installed, and I also wrapped it, as you can see. So that looks good. I also got this exhaust gas temperature bung welded in there, and the wire routed up to here. So that's also done. And then I also installed a brand new turbo oil feed line, AN lines, because I was kind of concerned about the stock ones being clogged. So I installed this on there, so that'll work better. Here's the dashboard. Now what I'm going to be doing for my gauge pod, I'm going to cut a big hole right up here to put this gauge pod in. Let me show you. To put this gauge pod in there. So this gauge pod's for a 2008 to 14 WRX. They have like a cut out here already, but I like the way it looks, so I was like, I want one of those in my car. So I got to cut a hole and make this fit in the dashboard, but that's what it's going to look like. You can see I got the air fuel ratio gauge right there, EGT. I'm waiting on the oil pressure that's going to go in the center, so that's why I have all the wires coming up where they were, just to the center of the dash to plug into the back of the gauges right here. These gauges are pretty cool because instead of having like a bunch of wires and lights and stuff, it's just simple plugs. These digital gauges though are very expensive. They're probably around 200 each. So you kind of pay for the quality, but I love them. They look great. They still have like a protective thing on the bezel. I'm going to leave that on until it's installed. But yeah, so far I really like those gauges. So there's a couple things I want to do before I get the engine started heading into the car. One of them is I got this little fitting right here. It's 1/8 inch NPT to -6 AN, and that's for my fuel system. So if you remember, I put this fitting on where the factory fuel pressure regulator goes, and that's an 1/8 inch NPT thread. So this is going to thread into there, and then I have a 90-6 AN that's going to come out, and that's going to go to all the other stuff. I also got my fuel hose, all of my fuel fittings. I got my gauges, of course, you've seen those. I got my Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. The only part that I still need to buy is my fuel pump. I wanted to go with a Walbro fuel pump, but the company that manufactures them was currently closed due to the coronavirus thing. Depending on when I need it, whether they're open or not, depends on when I'll buy it. Or if I'll buy a Walbro, I might get an Aeromotive fuel pump, just because got the fuel pressure regulator, might as well get the fuel pump as well. So now that you're all caught up on, you know, all the stuff I got, let's get started on the engine, putting the engine back in. Okay, so I'm gonna take off this pitch stop mount now, because I got a new Grimspeed one to go in there. So here's the factory one compared to the Grimspeed one. This one is like billet aluminum. This one's made out of like plastic. So this one's a little bit heavier. Actually not really, but a lot more rigid. And these are rubber bushings and these are polyurethanes. So this one's going to be a lot better. It'll go well with my group N motor mount and tranny mounts. So I just kind of went through everything and went around the engine and made sure everything was you know, tight enough. Double checked everything. The next step will be to hook up the load leveler to the engine and get that thing ready to go in on the cherry picker so I can install my clutch and all that good stuff. So I don't believe I showed you my clutch and pressure plate that I got yet, but let me get these out of the box and I'll give you a closer look. This is a Spec Stage 2 Plus clutch for a Subaru WRX. So here we got the pressure plate, bright blue you see, and it says Spec on it. Clutch itself is kind of odd. I've never seen one like this before, but the back of it, or I guess this is the flywheel side, is like a reverse pattern, and then the front's like a normal 6-puck kind of deal. But these are supposed to be good for high 400 foot-pound of torque range, which is about what the car is going to be in when it's done. So this clutch should last me a very long time, and it'll hold up to launches without slipping and stuff. Like even when the car was stock, the factory clutch would slip if I tried launching it hard. Yeah, I'm gonna get this started installing, following the instructions and stuff. These pressure plate bolts also came with the ARP flywheel that's on there. Alright, so I greased the splines on the clutch plate, and I got the alignment tool on there, so I'm just gonna stick this on, get it in place. The torque spec for these pressure plate bolts is 35 Newton meters. Yours may be different, but this is what mine is. It's always a little sad to me that the most expensive and prettiest parts are the ones that you don't get to see. So I'm going to take a couple pictures of this before I put it in the car, just so I got proof, you know? Okay, so as you can tell, engine is in place now. I stopped the video because I ran into a problem. That problem was this little dowel pin right here. These are supposed to be pressed into the back side of the engine where the transmission and engine made up. For some reason, they stayed in the transmission when I pulled the old engine out. So when I was trying to mate them together, everything was lined up right, but they were hitting tip to tip on these dowels. So I just had to get all the bell housing bolts in and tighten them slowly around until it pressed this dowel out the back side of the transmission. So if you guys are doing this, make sure you check your dowel placement and everything on your transmission. I got the Grimspeed pitch stop mount installed. That looked good in there. I also got the downpipe installed, which surprisingly fits very well. This is the Megan Racing downpipe. I wrapped it. Fitment is absolutely perfect. It clears the firewall. The hanger lined up. It lined up with the factory cat back. Perfect. For like, I think I only paid $150 for that downpipe. Totally worth it. Highly recommended. The up pipe was also fit perfectly. You can't really see it from up here, but you can see how nicely all the wrapping came. You can still see it from the top, which is nice. I need to get a turbo blanket for the turbo still. Now, you know, I gotta bolt on all these accessories again and get all that done, but made big steps today. This is a big part of getting the project done, was getting the engine back in the car. So that's going to be it for this video. Got a lot done today. I'm going to get started on working on putting the accessory stuff on, but I'm going to call it a wrap on that video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.